crazy Buzzard, and recently, like a lot of you guys that watch this channel, I just picked up the Sony ZV-E10. And I know in my last video I mentioned one of the very first things you guys are gonna wanna do is probably pick up a new lens. Whether you guys are looking for a bigger aperture or a wider focal length, there's a ton of reasons that you guys are gonna want to get a new lens. I did a ton of digging online. Not a ton of digging, like 5 to 10 minutes, but I did some digging online, both on B&H, Amazon, and Google, and came across the Samyang 12mm with autofocus. Now, knowing that, I found the Rokinon 12mm with autofocus, and this lens happened to be on sale for $200, meaning that you can get a decently wide aperture, a decently wide field of view for $200. Now, this isn't a sale that's going on all the time, and maybe I just got lucky at the time that I found this lens, or maybe this lens is gonna be going on sale often. I'm not too sure, but this is definitely one of those lenses to put on your watch list. Let's actually unbox this lens. All right, that was quick. You thought I was gonna waste your time today. Anyways, this is the Rokinon 12mm f2 with autofocus. Now, a lot of you guys have probably heard of the Samyang or the Rokinon version of the 12mm manual lens. This is a pretty classic Sony crop sensor lens for the Sony fam out there, but this is a phenomenal lens, both for astrophotographers, people that are looking at video and photograph landscapes and things of that nature, and it's especially popular in the real estate, people that shoot real estate. So this is a really, really popular lens for people that shoot on crop sensor bodies, and even some people that shoot on cameras like the A7 III. They'll pop that lens on in the Super 35 mode and, you know, go to work like that. But anyways, that lens is really, really nice, but it doesn't have autofocus. And one huge thing about the Sony ZV-E10 is I really need that autofocus feature, especially when I'm trying to just walk around. Well, you don't really need it for this particularly, because you could just lock it off and then just keep your arm at that same distance. But it's just nice to have autofocus in a lens. And I was able to pick this lens up for cheaper than the manual focus lens, just on sale over at Amazon. Double check the Samyang version of it and check the Rokinon version of it. Maybe one of the two will be on sale. If it's on sale for $200, I say buy it, because that is a steal for a 12mm ultra wide f2 lens that is for an awesome little camera like the ZV-E10, your A6400, A6600, A61, 63, whatever you guys are shooting on. This is going to be a phenomenal lens for that, and I think you guys will see that in the test results coming up. Build quality wise, first let's talk about the overall build, how it feels, the look and feel and all that of it. This lens is a very nicely built lens, but it is noticeably not the same quality as their manual lens. Their manual lens is obviously built like a tank. This thing, you could probably drop it off a table a couple times and it's not going to break. This lens, on the other hand, being focused by wire and all of that kind of stuff, is probably durability-wise nowhere near the manual focus lens. This thing literally is all metal, almost all metal construction, besides probably the focus ring. But there's a lot of metal on this lens, and it just feels pretty beastly in your hands. Almost like a vintage manual focus lens is what the Rokinon and Samyang 12mm f2 feels like, the manual version. This lens feels more like your 50mm Sony lens, something of that nature. It's not an all-metal construction. It's definitely some kind of composite plastic. It has a nice metal E-mount on there, so I'm not too worried about that. It does have a gasket on it, so it is weather sealed, but the ZV-E10 is not weather sealed, so that doesn't really matter in our case. Another thing to take into consideration is image quality wise, this is the exact same optics as the 12mm manual focus lens, so there's not going to be any image quality difference. Overall, the build quality and the overall look and feel of this lens is definitely, it's a good lens to have in your guys' kit, and it doesn't feel like something cheap you're going to be putting on to your lens, and it actually does it feels a lot better than the kit lens. Let's actually jump outside really quick so that you guys can see the how this lens actually looks with stabilization on in comparison to the Sony 10 to 18 millimeter at 10 millimeters, and in comparison to the Sony 16 to 50 millimeter kit lens that comes with your Sony ZV-E10. That way you guys can make a little bit better buying decision on if this lens is going to be good for you guys. And then after that test, I want to come back inside and actually put this lens on the tripod with the Sony ZV-E10 so that you guys can really see what this lens looks like in this environment. But yeah, so let's go jump outside real quick. Right now we are filming on the 16 to 50 millimeter kit lens that comes with the Sony ZV-E10 or any of the other Sony a6000 line cameras. What we actually want to test out is the Rokinon 12mm. So now this 12mm obviously has autofocus, so I want to kind of put it up to the test with the 16 to 50 millimeter and just get a general idea of the autofocus using the 10 to 18 millimeter f4 from Sony. So we're going to use the kit lens as kind of our baseline or our kind of reference lens for these other two lenses. So let's go ahead and do a quick walking test right now with the Sony 16 to 50 millimeter kit lens. So I'm gonna walk about 15-20 feet back, and then I'm gonna turn around and walk straight back to the camera. And obviously the goal is for the lens and camera to track us the entire time back and forward. Coming all the way back to this tree. And then we're gonna walk straight back to the camera, get my model on, let's go. We're gonna come right back up to here. It looks like it's grabbing focus on my face. Let's pop out of frame once, pop right back in. Pop completely out of frame, pop right back in. How is it picking up? How is it switching back to the background? Now let's go ahead and switch over to the 10 to 18 millimeter and we'll do that exact same test. Now we have the 10 to 18 millimeter on here at 10 millimeters. You guys are gonna notice an obvious, way wider field of view, but let's go ahead and walk all the way back and forward and just kind of see how this lens is gonna track us. Turning back around and get that model on. Let's see how she does. All right, we're coming right back up, coming back. Let's pop out of frame, pop back in, and let's move out of frame over here, and let's pop back in. And so yeah, up next is the Rokinon 12mm, the one that we've kind of all been waiting for, and we're really kind of testing it out to see the overall performance of this lens today. All right guys, and now we are on the 12mm Rokinon. You can see that this is kind of a happy medium between that 16mm and the 10mm. So let's go ahead and run the autofocus test. Before we get started, two settings that did change are the shutter speed. We are actually at 1/400, and the f-stop is at 2.0, just because I want to see what this lens looks like at f2.0. So let's go ahead and run this quick test. Walking all the way back to the tree, stopping, turning around, walking back, get that model on. And how's it tracking? How's it looking? Decent. Moving off camera. Moving back on. How's it tracking? How's it doing? And let's move this way. And pop back on. How's it doing? How's it working? And let's go ahead and move into the next test, which is actually the active stabilization test. Let's get that. All right, and we are here with the kit lens that comes with the Sony ZV-E10, and we are actually at shutter speed of 1/100, f3.5, ISO 100, and this is what you guys can kind of expect with the kit lens in active stabilization mode. Notice the kind of overall framing here, guys. This is, for a lot of people, what they're talking about when they say a 16mm or a 24mm equivalent is a little too tight for vlogging, or so that people can really get a sense of like your overall surroundings. So let's switch over to the 10 to 18 at 10mm. We'll adjust the settings we need to just to have the exposure at 0. And yeah, let's go ahead and pop this lens off. And we are here with the 10 to 18mm. I actually didn't change any settings yet. I think it'll just brighten up as we're kind of walking around and getting away from that tree. But yeah, that'll also kind of show you guys that this f4 is a little darker than the kit lens. So just keep that in mind. But let's talk about the overall framing that you guys are gonna get here. Here's what it looks like with me kind of squared up to the camera like we kind of did in the last with the kit lens. So this is kind of what you guys can expect with the Sony ZV-E10 with the 10 to 18mm with active stabilization turned on. So this is obviously going to be one of your guys' best options for walking around doing this type of content creation. And notice how it seems like you're right here with me. That's one thing that I love about the wider the lens. It really gives you that awesome kind of field of view for social media and that type of content. So I really love this 10 to 18, even though this Rokinon that we're about to swap over to right now is really wide, and it's an awesome price, especially compared to this 10 to 18. So let's switch over to the Rokinon and see exactly what kind of field of view we're getting with the Rokinon. This is actually the Rokinon 12mm at f2. We did have to bump up the shutter speed a little bit so that we could get the exposure meter a little farther down. It's actually hovering around 0.3 to 0.7. So, but we have the shutter at 1/320, and the ISO is still the same at 100. And this is the actual framing that you guys can kind of expect from the Sony ZV-1. I'm gonna hold it out as far as possible real quick, just so you guys can get that max, at least with my arm length. And now I'm gonna hold it more at a comfortable arm length, one-handed. This is kind of what you guys could expect. Here, let me square up a little bit more. As you guys can see, this should be an 18mm equivalent without the 1.44 crop factor. You got to factor in for active stabilization mode. So whatever 18 times 1.44 is, that is about the field of view that you guys are getting right now. So a little bit wider than the 16mm, but not as wide as obviously the 10mm. The 10mm is a lot more ideal for this type of content creation. But let me know what you guys think out of all three of these tests. Which lens one do you guys think looks the best overall? This one is at f2. We're getting a lot more bokeh in the background than we were with the past two lenses at f3.5 and f4.0. So just let me know what you guys think of these kind of overall lenses. What do you think of the Rokinons overall, the colors, the looks? We're outside right now just using natural sunlight. It is getting pretty close to golden hour, but not quite golden hour yet. So yeah, this is what you guys can expect from this lens at 12mm, obviously, at f2.0, and yeah, with active stabilization turned on. And really quickly, just so you guys know what it looks like or what to expect, I'm gonna turn off active stabilization so that you guys can kind of see the overall framing with active stabilization turned off. Now we have active stabilization turned off and we're at 12mm. I'm doing my best to hold this camera as still as possible, but I drank like 3 coffees today, so I have tons of caffeine jitters, I am sure. And yeah, even the 12mm wideness is not really gonna help my caffeine jitters. So you know, this is what you guys can expect if you're looking for that super wide 12mm field of view with no stabilization whatsoever. Let's actually jump back down to the lab and let's put this ZV-1 and the 12mm up in the office, and I'm gonna tell you guys my initial thoughts on this lens. All right, we're now in the home office, the studio, the editing space, the lab, whatever you guys wanna call it, filming on the Rokinon at f2, ISO 100, and we have all of our lights set exactly how we did earlier. And the first thing you guys are gonna notice right off the bat is this is a completely different look than what we were achieving before on the FX3 with the 35mm G Master at f1.8. So we're not getting quite as much background separation, but we're getting a much wider field of view, and the camera is way closer to me. I can literally touch the lens if I wanted to. But this is a completely different look and just a completely different vibe than what we were getting earlier. So this is what you guys can expect from that ultra wide look in an office or studio kind of environment, or a talking head type video with the camera extremely close to you. But what are my initial thoughts and everything on this lens? Now, I think that this lens is going to be an awesome option for your guys' second lens for your ZV-E10, or your first lens for your ZV-E10, or just an awesome option in general for anybody shooting on Sony crop sensors. Now, this is going to be a great alternative to people who don't want to spend $700 to $800 on a 10 to 18mm, or, you know, $500 or so on the used market for the 10 to 18mm. You could go ahead and get this 12mm f2 brand new from B&H for around $400. And I was lucky enough to get my particular copy off Amazon for $200 on sale. So if you guys can find it anywhere between $200 and $400, which is a little under MSRP at $400, I think that this lens is going to be a great option and a great deal for anybody who needs a lens wider than 16mm. I know a lot of people gravitate towards the Sigma 16mm f1.4, but if you guys need something wider than 16mm, then I definitely can recommend getting something like this Rokinon or the Samyang 12mm f2 with autofocus. Let me know in the comments down below your guys' thoughts and opinions on this lens with the test that I did out back, as well as just how it looks in this overall scene down here in the basement. I'm still kind of testing this lens out, but as of right now, this seems to be a great option, especially for what I'm gonna wanna do some of those handheld self documentation vlog style content, especially for the stuff that I plan on doing here on the YouTube channel in the future, and even stuff that my clients are looking for. Either way, I think that this is going to be a great option for you guys, and definitely something to put on your watch list and at least wait and see if it goes on sale for that $200. But anyways, that is all I had for today. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys think that this 12mm f2 is going to be a great option for you guys, or if you guys are picking up something else for your Sony ZV-E10 or your other crop sensor Sony camera. Anyways, that is all I had for today. I will check you guys out in the next video. If you guys have not yet subscribed, definitely hit that subscribe button. It helps me out a ton, and we just hit 500 subscribers, so thank you guys for subscribing and following along with this channel. I really, really appreciate it. But I'm gonna get out of here. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace. actually, guys, for a quick bonus, this is the Ulanzi wide angle adapter. Now, I got this for my Sony ZV-1, but this will actually work with your Sony ZV-E10 if you just get a really simple 40.5 millimeter to 52 millimeter filter adapter or step-up ring. So that's what I actually did, and really quickly, let's screw this guy on, and you guys can actually see how much wider of a field of view you guys get or don't get. It is a little bit wider as far as the overall look, but I think even comparing this to like the 12mm, I think the 12mm is still gonna be wider. So I don't know if I'll put this in right after the kit lens kind of active stabilization framing test, or if I'll put this in at the very end of the video or something as a little bonus for you guys that stuck around, probably. Anyways, this is the framing that you guys can expect to get with the Ulanzi wide angle adapter on the Sony ZV-1's kit lens. So yeah, a little bit wider, but not substantially wider. You guys can kind of see my shoulders in this shot.